Hi guys, welcome to another video on Hither Green TMD in O-Gauge. Today we're going to proceed on from where we were last time, and as you can just about see here in the video, I've painted the walkways that we stuck down on the last video. Today we are going to look at some ballasting. Lots of videos on ballasting, so mine won't really be much different to the others. But it's the process and we'll just go through it. So what I'll do is I'll just move the camera around and we'll have a look at what we're going to be using. Okay, first off, before we look at the ballasting side of things, just a quick look at the concrete walkways. So we've got the concrete areas here now down and painted. These colours, matte 127, which is a sort of a creamy sand colour. Some bits of matte black in between where the bitumen is, and some light grey for the concrete slabs. These will of course be weathered down at a later date, which will change the colours dramatically. So first thing we're going to do is, for this ballasting job, will be to block off in the track here, because obviously I need to put the walkways down at a later date, but I don't want the ballast and ash impeding on that. And the ballast and ash at Hither Green was higher than the sleep height at that location, so I just need to make it so that I can replicate that at a later date without too much aggravation. And the other thing that I'm going to have to do is put some tape along the edge of the board here to stop the ballast and that all falling off the edge. So I'll get on with that, and then we'll go through the products that we're going to be using. Okay, materials that we're going to be using. What I'm trying to replicate is a bit of ballast, a bit of ash, because Hither Green was a former steam shed, so there's a lot of ash on the ground, crushed down over the years, which is turned into the surface. That is going to be replicated by what I have here, which is very fine beach sand. Where I live, I don't have to go and buy it because it congregates in our garden free of charge, blown in by the wind, so it's a quick scoop up. I've washed it because it's come from the beach, so there would have been a reasonable amount of salt in it, so hopefully I've got the majority of the salt out, and then dried it. That takes quite a while, but anyway, it's all ready to go. Half a tin of that there, and I'm using the Wooden Scenics medium blend ballast in grey. We've got draining into the bottom here the last of my PVA from that tube, and then that will get mixed down 50-50 with water and a tiny squirt of washing up liquid to help reduce the surface tension. Got an old plastic spoon here with the tip cut off, so it's to help load it into little areas where I want. Obviously in big areas here I can just pour it straight from the tin, but if I want a measured amount, then the spoon is useful. And finally, my wife's X blusher brush, makeup brush. It's very soft and a big wide head, so it's excellent for moving around sand and ballast. So I recommend one of these. This is one of my, I've used this one for years and years now, and never had any makeup on it. Funny that, really. But anyway, that's where we're at. So I shall now continue to let that drain in the background, and we'll start to spread around the ballast where I want it. Right, so the question is, where do I want the ballast and where do I want the sand? Looking at photos around the depot, effectively this rear road here to number 1 road in the shed was ballasted more than ash, so has sort of probably been replaced at some stage. So that's mainly ballast. The points are mainly ballast, and in the middle here and up these 2 roads towards the shed are mainly ash. So we'll start with the track ballast. It's quite simple. I'm just going to spread it liberally around where I want it. We can always add more. It's easier to add more than take it away, so it's best not to get too carried away too early on. And a bit in this set of points here. Like I say, it's easier to remove than it is, easier to put in the track rather than take it out. So we'll just get a bit around first. Plenty more where that comes from, and we'll just spread it around. It's quite therapeutic. I enjoy spreading ballast. Remembering not to get it in the point motor mechanism, so I'll leave that down there and I'll just bring this all back this way. Of course you can continue with a smaller brush in smaller areas, but it's not difficult to move around. Tap it down to get it into the beds between the sleepers. So I'll just carry on with this and we'll come back shortly. Okay, so now having it spread it around the main area of where I want it, I now want to sort of regulate where I want some more ballast. So I'm going to use the spoon here. I'm going to pour it along the shoulder here of the sleepers up into the little gaps, because I want to not have any holes really. But it's just that little bit of fine control of where I want it to be. So over the ends of the sleepers. Here, and this one here, but I don't want to go down into the hole where the point motor is. So this just gives me just that little bit of finesse to lay it just about where I want it, rather than all over the place. And again, I'll just run up the shoulders of this point here. I'm not going to do the back edge yet because there's things I need to do over there, so I'm doing just literally up to these points, which there where the motor is, and going along this way. Okay, what I'm now going to use is a smaller brush just to manoeuvre it around a little bit more finely, because the big brush isn't, to be honest, isn't as good as it is on 00, because the beds in between the sleepers are bigger, so the brush tends to flick out more. So again, just move it around with just a cheap smaller paintbrush. It's going to take a little bit longer to manoeuvre it all around and sweep it out and drag it around out of where there's too much. The advantage is it's a yard, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Not that it was, perfect for many years on VR. It was all, once it became mechanised and you didn't have men walking around with their little shovels tidying things up, prize lengths and all those things, the tidiness of the ballast reduced over the years, and it's just not worried about anymore. So we'll just carry on manoeuvring the ballast, popping it around, moving it around on the sleeper ends. Just moving around off of there. We can still use the big brush for moving around on the flat areas. And bring it around. So just bring a little bit back. Easy with the big brush to bring a bit back. And then back to just removing off of the sleepers. You can use fingers, brush, anything you like. Just till you're happy with the result that you end up with. Okay, so from there, round past my cup of tea to there, just up the back road there, that's taken me over an hour to get in position and tamp out. So now we get the slightly easier part, and that is to spread the sand around. Hopefully it's not so lively. So literally we're just going to pour it out of the tin, give it a sprinkle over the track again. And hopefully this will also then hold in some of the ballast which is already there. Relatively liberal, because again we can add more easier than we can take it away. This will be weathered down, of course. This is just raw sand at the minute. And will look better later on, but at the minute we're just giving the coverage up around through to the shed. Just a general. All the roads. Just turn around there a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. But hopefully this will be easier to manoeuvre about than the ballast, because it's less gritty. Right, so a liberal coating, we'll see how far that goes. Again, big brush. There's the camera looking, you're looking down here. That's fine. Hopefully this won't be so bad with the big brush. Just tamp it all down into place, and then we'll start to move it around. And this will become ash. Well, this is definitely easier to brush on. This just sweeps nicely. Oh, it's definitely much easier. It just sweeps. Just put this in all the nooks and crannies. In the gaps in the tiles to act as mortar, because it will all glue in. Sweep it up into the corners here, over the sleeper ends, and just move it around until we're happy with the level. And then in areas where it's low, you can just tip in a bit more. So I'll be back once I've finished spreading this about. We'll have a look and see how we've got on. It's coming along nicely. There's a few little low spots. We've got a bit here which is low. It's up around here. Just fill those up. This is definitely easier than the ballast. It's less lively because it's fine, I'm assuming. And it just flows rather than flicks around off each other. So hopefully, just a little fine tweaking. Top up there, and a little bit of a top up along the edge here. Doesn't matter if it goes over onto the ballast because it all gets walked in. I'm going to put a little bit up in the corners. Mix a bit in. So some places are just sprinkle. Okay, I reckon I've got enough on there now. I'll just carry on off the camera. And now that we've generally got it around everywhere where I want, just a case of just tidying up off the sleeper tops into the beds, and then we'll do the little final settling trick. I say trick, it's not a trick, it's a tip. How to get the ballast to settle evenly in the beds. So you get it into the beds where you want it, and then it all settles down. And then you can move it around a bit more. Dab it with your fingers. Anything you like, until you get it all nice and settled. Just a little tip. Now I want some of this on the sleepers because they're going to get sprayed and it's all going to get weathered down. I don't want it to be all over. So we'll just carry on just brushing, using my fingers. Just to pull it in. And I'm happy with that. I'll get my smallest of my little hammers in a second. So it's all off the ends of the sleepers, it looks like. Ground. Just tapping it all down to lose the ridges. And that is pretty much all I need to do. So that's taken 10 minutes where the other bit took over an hour. So the sand is definitely easier than the ballast to get it on the ground where you want it. You know, okay. So I reckon just a little pat down there. Just tamp it down, dust off the sleeper ends. Pat it back up towards the end of the sleepers. And I reckon we're pretty much ready for glue. want it built up in here, in these little channels at the edge of the concrete. Everything's blocked in there over the years. I'm just going to gently knock it off the rails, and that is it, ready for gluing down. There we go. So there we have it, all ready for gluing. Just dust these bits off here. So I've got fine sand in all over the place, in all over the joints, up to the edge of the board, around the rail chairs. It doesn't matter because it's all going to get a good wash down, so it's going to look like ash later. So, quick overview from that end. Put the ballast at the back and the sand, which will be ash at the front. So there we go. Time to glue. Okay, right, I have my 50-50 mix of PVA with a splash of detergent, washing up liquid. But that's not going to be quite enough. So the issue we will have here is, because I'm using a very fine sand, is bobbling up of the glue water mix on the top. So to remove the surface tension, I have some glass cleaner in a spray bottle, which I'm going to mist, hopefully, over it and not ball up too much. Just the top, just to moisten the surface, so that when I spray the glue it gets sucked in. So we just put that on there just to dampen the top. So that's it. Now what I don't have is enough glue to do all of this because I've run out of PVA. So I'll carry on. I'm going to do the edge to start with and just run it into the, just dribble it in. And just let it flow to where it wants to. Trying not to get too much glue over the board at the front. But it's a case of just working an area, running drips into all the sleeper beds and just letting it suck in and do what it wants to do. Running everywhere eventually. So we'll do this area in the V. You see, it just draws that into the sand nicely where it's pre-wetted. And just liberally just pour it in. I have to do several runs of this because, like I say, I don't have enough in this little bottle to do the whole layout, which is typical. But there we go. Quick trip to the hardware store this afternoon, possibly, and it'll all be good. So I shall carry on with this, just running it in all the areas, just over and over again, until the areas are all flooded, and then we'll have to leave it for a few days because it's quite a large area to go off. So we'll catch up at the end. So there we have it. That is how I ballast my track and how I glue it. It's unfortunate I haven't got enough glue, but that's no problem. Quick trip to the local hardware store this afternoon will see me with enough of that, and then I can just finish gluing it down. And then on the next video, which I can't obviously do for a few days, by the time it takes it all to dry, I'll take you around and see how it's turned out. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll look quite good. Ready for weathering then. So until next time, I'll catch you later. See you.